This is fun.
What's going on, Davis? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. How are you? How are you doing?
You know, man, it's a crazy world we live in. I'm just passing through it.
Yes, it is a crazy world. Where are you based?
I am in Mississippi.
Okay, I heard the southern accent, so I knew you were from the south.
Where are you at right now, Davis?
I'm in Nashville.
Oh, you're in that. So are you based in Nashville, based out of Nashville?
I am. I've lived here for 7 years now, going on 8.
Where were you originally from? Because how was that Nashville kind of different from where you were before?
I was born in Georgia, in Atlanta, so it's not far.
So it's not too much of a difference.
Not that drastic, and my dad's brother and sister and my dad's mother all live here in Nashville. So since I was little, I've been coming here.
Right, right. Brother, that is a very festive shirt. I'm glad that you wore that for the show. It's
Two reasons. I just got back from Puerto Rico yesterday, and I'm a little sunburned, and I was feeling kind of tropical. But also, this is the same shirt I wore in this music video for Heavy, which we were talking about. So I thought I would put it back on for some memorabilia.
So yeah, what we're here for is, man, is we're obviously going to talk about your life and just have a good chat. But I wanted to mention, your publicist sent me over here your track Lifeline, which was released. It's about national suicide prevention, basically saying that I'm your lifeline. Come to me, anything you need. And then you've got a new one out called Heavy. So talk about both of those real quick, and we'll just dive into the deep of the pie. We'll come back to a full circle.
Yeah, I mean, Lifeline I wrote first, and I wrote Lifeline in probably 2015 or 16 with another artist here in Nashville. He's got a band called Lost Stars. They're a pop band. They're doing really good at Spotify, a couple million streams per song. And when I met him, I heard him play his very first ever live show. And I was like, that's a good songwriter. And I asked him if he would write a song with me. And he said yes. And our first song we wrote together was Lifeline. And this was at a time in my career where I really didn't have the relationships I have today when it comes to music producers.
Right.
So it just kind of sat as a demo for several years, just like a good song with no production. And a year or two ago, I got in touch with a producer from Israel who heard the song and asked me to give him the vocals. And that's how I work with producers today. I just give them my vocals and I sit back and wait for them to come today and deliver something cool to me. And he delivered this really cool production for the song that is now out. And then in the beginning of this year, 2021, I was down in Miami and I met a music video director who was like, I want to make a music video about a song for people that are dealing with life's hardships. Do you have any songs about that subject? And I was like, well, I have this one called Lifeline. So I reached out to the music producer and I said, hey, I'm going to shoot a video for our song. And he's like, bro, last night I had a dream that, because I guess at his stage in his career, he'd never made a music video for his work. So he's like, I had a dream that one of my songs was going to get a music video. And I was like, well, this must be the dream you were talking about. So we shot a video for it in Miami, and we went to a cheap motel and filmed a scene of a woman dealing with depression, and then another woman dealing with like sex, human trafficking, and a guy dealing with addictions. And then when the video ended, we reached out to different national organizations and got their permission or their verbiage, like what was the text they wanted to have written, so that when the video ends, you have all these resources. If you're dealing with any of these addictions, or if you have friends that are dealing with any of these issues, like where do you go? And then we released it this year during Suicide Prevention Week, and then shot a music video that we released during like Mental Health Awareness Week, so that they both the subjects of the song, so they both get like different. We push them out at different times.
So you mentioned there was a dream, but do you suffer personally from like mental awareness? Because obviously you're for it a lot. So I'm just wondering if that has like a personal relationship to you of somewhat, maybe you or a family member.
My grandfather is a psychiatrist, and
Oh,
he's a psychiatrist author. So he's written books on psychiatry. He's passed away. And when he passed away, I inherited a lot of his books. And I was reading books on subjects like addiction, or I can't really remember. Just there were religious books too. So subjects on like blending faith with your, because he was a Christian psychiatrist, which apparently was not a common thing at a time when most psychiatrists were like atheists. He was one of the few Christian ones. So he wrote books on Christian psychiatry. So that's one of my passions behind this. But I mean, I'm a child of divorce. My parents divorced. And when they did, I got put into counseling at a young age. So I've gone through counseling most of my life, and it's very normal for me to just sit and talk to a therapist about my life. And whenever things go wrong, like a breakup, for example, I usually seek counseling to deal with the pain of the breakup. And I'm sober now as of January 2022. I'll be 5 years sober. But when I got sober, I
congratulations.
did, yeah, thank you. But I did seek counseling to get through breaking addictions and learning how to break addictions, because they say like it takes, I think, 21 days to form a habit. It also takes about 21 days to break a habit. So if you're trying to break anything, try to go 21 days without doing it, and that can change the habit. So things like that. I just learned a lot of tips on how to define, how to become sober. So, and to define your own sobriety, like what it is you want to define as your own sobriety.
So you mentioned that you were, you're 5 years sober or will be in January. What was your drug of choice?
Alcohol was my primary one, and the other was marijuana at one point in my life. But I have I've been sober from both. I was actually sober from marijuana longer because I just didn't enjoy it. I had started having like paranoias, and like, when you're young and you get high and it's like fun and you're watching cartoons with your friends and you're just laughing. Like that's where it started for me. Like basically during college, I would just get high with my friends and drive around in a car, smoke a bowl. But then as I got older, it was starting to make me feel afraid anytime I would get high. I would like be afraid of the people I was around or afraid of my surroundings. And eventually I had to just quit. Way before I quit drinking, I just stopped smoking. And still today, if I ever now that everybody's doing CBD, it's like the
Yeah.
new thing. Like that kind of stuff I've tried as a sober person, and it's just like too close to what marijuana was. So I'm just like, can't do that either. So
When did you decide that you finally needed help from the alcohol? Was there just a point?
yeah, I think like honestly, I was in a relationship. We were both using alcohol and marijuana, and we got in a fight and we broke up. And when we did, I had to like realize that this was probably the breaking point and my lowest point, as they say, like you have to hit your rock bottom to really give everything up. For me, the breakup was my rock bottom, and I actually have never touched alcohol since we broke up. And there's that song by Mitchell Tenpenny called "Drunk Me."
Yeah.
And if you're familiar with it, the lyrics are like, some people don't know when to quit, and that's why they quit. And he's like, but for him, he's like, he's been sober because he can't get over that person. And like, I just discovered that song in the last year or two, and I'm like, I wish I wrote that song, because that's really the reason I got sober. Is it's like I went through a breakup, and I never drank again when we broke up, because it was like, I don't know. I just realized that I didn't want to be in another relationship based around drinking, and I didn't like myself when I drank. And I'd also tried to quit several times before and was successful for like 3 months or 1 year at the most. But I'd never really been. Sorry. Bear with me 1 second.
No, you're okay.
Super sorry. My roommate. I forgot to tell him what was going on. So I just thought I had to have quiet. But we walked in, and I was like, I need to catch him up. What's going on? So where was I saying? So yeah, when we broke up, I got sober, and as I got sober longer, I got to my 1 year anniversary of being sober, and I was like, and I was a little older when I got sober. Like I was over 30. I was like 31 or 32. I was like, I really wish I had gotten sober younger, because I think I'd gotten just really, like, most people are dependent upon it. They like feel like they need to drink when they're with their friends. They need to drink on New Year's Eve. They need to drink on their birthday. they need to drink on the weekends. And once I realized I didn't need to anymore, and I was able to go out on those special moments and not drink, I was like, well, I really wish I quit a long time ago, because I have had a great 1 year with no alcohol. And I could have had all those previous years great as well without alcohol, without all the mistakes I made with alcohol in my life. Like the fights I got into. You know, when you're drunk and you're having a bad day, you get angry about something going on in your life, and then you drink and it just makes matters worse. It's like, those are the things I wish I could have avoided, was when something goes wrong and then you drink too much and then you're angry that night, you know, things like that.
I actually don't know. I've never ever took a sip of alcohol, never done any type of drug, no marijuana, cigarette, no tobacco. It's just, I saw how it destroyed my family. And I was like, you know, I'm 23, never touched anything. And I'm like, you know, I'm going to keep that, I think, because I think I'm kind of proud of that. Because for a while, you know, you're like, oh, you're the outcast because you don't do anything. But then it's like, no, you're the outcast because you are. And I'm, you just have to get that mindset going.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And, you know, my dad's sober as well, but he was a big drinker. So I guess I didn't learn the way you learned. Like, I wish I had that kind of like, well, I saw my dad's life ruined from alcohol, so I'm not going to let it ruin mine.
Yeah.
And my mom told me that as a child. She's like, you should never drink, Davis, because of your father. But for me, I just had to try it. Like, I had to see what it was. I kind of felt like I had to try everything just to make sure I knew it really wasn't good for me. And once I realized it wasn't good for me, started wanting to become like preach that more to other people. Like, I would like to make kids that are growing up not go do the same things I did, even though we all need to kind of learn from we need to all have some life lessons. You know, life needs to teach us some lessons. But I think a lot of the movies and TV shows we watch popularizes drinking without warning us about the damage that it does, like the liver damage and the deaths that it causes and things like that. It's just not really well cautioned, and I wish that it was. So yeah.
You know, I usually take dark turns in these podcasts, which we will here soon, because I have some very interesting non-prepared questions that I do want to ask you, David. But I want to know, when did your alcohol kind of, start? Like, was it when you were on, MTV and The Real World and stuff like that? Is that kind of how it got bigger and where you couldn't kind of control it, like you had mentioned?
No, I started drinking in college, and I was a little later because like high school kids in my community were drinking, but my mom was so strict I wasn't allowed to. So I never drank in high school.
No, let me tell you, I want to know how strict your mom was, and I want to compare it to how strict my mom was. So how strict was your mom? I want to know.
I mean, like, my mom wouldn't let me drive in the car with other kids she didn't know at all.
Uh-huh.
So I didn't have that luxury like some kids would have had. I
Uh-huh.
wasn't really allowed to spend the night at other people's houses if she didn't know who they were.
Uh-huh.
So I was very, very few times that I ever spend the night over at someone else's house. My mom's a Christian, so it was very important that my friendships were with other Christians as well. So she always
Right.
wanted to kind of vet that quality. Um, every spring break I had throughout high school was a church mission trip. I never did like a spring break at the beach with friends and like a party environment. All 4 years I went on church trips. And that wasn't necessarily anything I like feel as being strict. I actually really enjoyed them, and I'm glad I did those. But I wasn't really like free to party, is what I'm trying to paint the story.
Right.
So when I went to college, that's my first window into the party life, because I didn't have my mom to come home and really ask what I did that day.
Right.
And so I had my
You were finally like, okay, I can take a breather. Let me experiment real quick, because it could be something, like straight people. They're like, hey, yeah, I may have experimented with a guy a couple of times, just to understand, because I may not have been gay, but what if I was? And then, like, gay people the same way. They're like, hey, I experienced with a woman because I just needed to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. It was like I got to college and I was like, well, what's this drinking all about? And I didn't like beer the first time I tasted it. I thought it was gross. But it was like Bud Light or Natty Light or something very cheap and watered down and just really unflavorful, like not
Right.
something I crave. And later on in my college life, I went on a 3 or 4 like month trip to Europe during the summer, and I tasted German beer. And that's what really got me liking beer for the first time, because it was more like rich and flavorful and like orange hues and like a little bit of wheat. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, I like beer. But never before that did I actually like beer. I always thought it was gross. And yeah, and like during college, there was nights where I would actually regularly drink too much. Like I didn't know my limit. I didn't really know the power alcohol had. So when people gave me drinks, I would just drink as much as I could. So I had all those college, you see the pictures of people blacking out. Like that was my college experience. So
It was a damn Van Wilder experience.
absolutely.
So man, I noticed that on your left hand you got a ring. Are you married, engaged? What is that?
I'm dating a guy in he's Venezuelan, but he lives in Miami, and we have these rings. I got him one, and this is mine. They're a little different. We're not wearing identical, but I got them in the Navajo Nation in Arizona this summer.
Mhm.
And it's kind of planning a wedding that needs, from my point of view, to go through some key moments, including meeting the family and like making it. We've only been together for a year, so like kind of making it past the 1 year mark. And we were just
Right.
in vacation together in Puerto Rico, so we went through a lot of learning about each other. I met about 25 of his Venezuelan friends. I was the one gringo, and I really enjoyed it. But it was like, a learning experience about each other's differences. And so we were not married. I
Mhm.
wouldn't necessarily say that we're not engaged, because in a way we are engaged, but we haven't had that like get down on one knee moment with the, will you marry me moment. It's more just at this point, like we're committed to one another and we're working towards that as the future. So
I want to. I really am interested in this, and you grew up in a very Christian household, like you mentioned. Your grandfather was a Christian psychiatrist, author. So, what was your parents like towards when when you're like, "Hey, I'm gay"? What were they? Because if it was anything like my family, being as Christian as they are, they'd be like, "Nah, that's it. You're out of the house. Don't contact me anymore." I mean, honest to God's truth here. I mean, I'm putting my hand right here. I mean, it's honest to God's truth. That's what would have happened. So I wonder, what was it like?
I try not to paint it in a negative light anymore, because I feel like the more I talk negatively about that part of my life, the more it like hurts my mom, because she's so different today,
Okay, I
and
got you.
she's more
Right.
comfortable with it today. Like she did meet my boyfriend recently, but like, yeah, I think her initial reaction, I heard this in an interesting way when I was coming out. Like, imagine all the years and thoughts that you have as a gay person figuring out your sexuality. And then now you take that to your parent. They have to also have their own thoughts and years to come to the same conclusion that you've come to. So I think my mom took it probably like a lot of Christian moms would have taken it. I also think it's interesting that I think women have a harder time perhaps understanding, and I don't know if this is a fact, but it just
Mhm.
feels to me like why a man wouldn't be attracted to a woman, because they are a woman. It's like their thoughts probably are like, you must find us women beautiful and you must find us sexually attractive to you because I'm a woman. And so I think my mom couldn't quite understand why I didn't find women. And it's not that I don't. I mean, I do find women beautiful. There was a girl in Venezuela, a Venezuelan girl this trip in Puerto Rico. I was like, she's beautiful. I mean, I do find her women beautiful, but it was like, I just don't think she could quite understand why I was also attracted to men.
You don't find. Let me make sure I got this right. You found her beautiful, but you didn't find sexual tension between you and other women. Is that
I
kind of
did,
where
but
I'm going?
she had a boyfriend, so there was that, and I had a boyfriend. And so it was almost just like not really a real thought I had, but I was just like, yeah, she was, her body was a 10. Her face was a 10. Like if I was a straight guy, single, and if she was a straight girl, I would probably have gone after that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, not a straight girl, a single girl. Um, so and I don't really feel like my sexuality is like, I maybe, how they say people are on a spectrum from like super gay to like super straight and somewhere in the middle. Like I
Mhm.
feel like I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. Like during college, I did date girls and slept with girls, I just didn't find myself falling quite in love with them. And when I dated a guy, I felt this different feeling of falling in love with someone I had never felt before, and then only dated guys since. But I think now, as I'm getting older, I realize that like I'll never have a child with a guy, and that is something I want. So I feel now more like, well, how can I go about creating a child because I want to? I think a woman needs to be in the picture in some way, you know?
Yeah. See, I love stories like this, man. I was growing up, Christian family, you were caught talking to a gay person, you were like, you better stay away right now. And you know it, Davis. I mean, they were as strict as my parents were, but I love talking about it because I don't understand it. And I love learning, and I love not understanding and finally understanding, the reason behind people. So today in the music country world, I think sexuality is finally getting recognized as it should be. Like it should have been fucking 20 years ago. Have you seen any kind of, take the negative out of it, what are the positive aspects that you're getting as a gay country pop artist?
I mean, last night I saw Fancy Haygood perform. Are you familiar with him?
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Yeah, I'd never seen him sing before live, and he reminded me a lot of Chris Stapleton.
Right.
Like he has that same powerful voice, and he's about the same size of a guy, but he's like the gay version of Chris Stapleton. He's like very effeminate and very openly gay on stage, and almost every song talks about him being gay or in love with a man. He sang a song last night about "You're a Good Man," about how he wanted to find a good man. He jokingly said in one of his songs, instead of like "There's a strong man inside of me," he goes, "There's a strong man fucking me." And I was like, what? He just like owns his sexuality. And I chatted with him afterwards, and I was like, I'm also gay, so I really like what you're doing. And I think two things about this. One's a more controversial thing, and the other one's more popular. I'll go controversial first. Well, I feel like there's this push in the media right now for people to be like openly gay, and I agree with it because I'm openly gay about their career. But I also feel in a way like there's this like this is like a widely documented thing right now, and it's mostly related to COVID. But they feel like they're worried about the population size on this earth. Like we've gotten too many people on earth, and we don't know how to limit it. So if you encourage homosexuality, well, that cures the problem of reproduction because two men often don't have children. So I feel like in some way that's the controversial push right now for homosexuality. And I support it because I'm homosexual and I want my love life to be accepted and welcomed. And it is, I just spent a week around 25 Venezuelans, and I was the only gay couple there. They were all straight, and they were all happy to see us kiss and supportive. And in today's like world, all my friends are supportive. I don't really have any homophobia around me anymore. It's like not a thought at all for me to be thinking, oh, this person is possibly homophobic. I just don't feel that at all anymore.
But, and I'm going to say this, and I'm saying this from the minds of everybody. It's normal now. It's normal to say, because if you were 10 years ago, let's just take 10 years ago, for example, that it wasn't normal. It was not normal to see a girl kiss a girl on TV, on wherever, and a man. It's the same thing with a man. It was not normal. And then now, you see Disney coming out. And they're like, hey, we're going to have these gay characters. And you always see people bitch and moan and complain on. And I'm like, you don't have to watch it, but you have to understand this is normal. This is, I mean, it's like the vaccine. I'm like, people, you don't have to get it. But also, they tell you to wear your seatbelt, and you don't bitch and complain because you have to wear your seatbelt.
True.
I just look at it, I'm like, look, turn the damn TV off. You don't have to watch anything, and keep your opinions to yourself. It's just more normal now. It's more normal, and it's more accepted than it was 10 years ago. I mean, I think even in the entertainment industry, behind the scenes, you were trying to hide that you were gay because you were going to get like Black people are now and always have been. They're going to be overdrawn and they're going to be stepped over because of they're different than someone else. And I think, and I hope it's finally changing. I've seen a little bit of change, but I'm hoping that it's going to be, a big change for, for life.
Yeah. I mean, circling back to country, there still isn't like a successful country artist that's gay, that's open about it. I mean, the brothers Osborne brother, one of them is openly
Mhm.
gay, but he's not a lead artist. He's a duo.
Well, he's
It's
the
not
lead
like you
singer
have
of
like
that duo.
yeah, for sure. But he's not like, to me, it's almost like, well, there's a straight character in there and a gay character in there, and he's not to me, it's not like a Luke Bryan that's gay or like a Thomas Rhett that's gay or something. It's a little different. And then you have Lil Nas X, which is not country any longer. So it's like,
Yeah.
there's not that yet. And there's still like, could be room or a space for that,
Uh-huh.
for a gay artist in country music who's a solo act, who's charting on the radio. But I listen to country music pretty religiously and I love it. But the subject matter is almost always about drinking alcohol or a girl or love. And I feel like in country music, it's almost got to be pleasing to the listener, and the listeners are often straight, although they're not all straight. But that artist is going to have to probably either write almost like gender neutral songs or songs that are just more, open-ended. Yeah, exactly. Just gender neutral to become a successful country artist.
I see there was this the Lil Nas X, he had I don't remember the song, he had a video, but he had all the guys, that were naked around him, when people were freaking out about it. And I'm like, well, wait a second. How is it different from a guy that's dancing and enjoys females and they're all naked around him versus a guy that actually likes guys, but they're naked around him? What's the difference? It's like, there's not a difference. It's just you are so close-minded and you're so set in your ways that you can't see it.
Yeah.
You mentioned Davis, and I want to do this real quick. You mentioned that there was no openly, like a mega star openly gay country artist. And I pulled up a list here and I want to go through who some of them are. And there's one exception to the whole, kit and caboodle here. So we have Shelly Wright, which, single white female, stuff like that. You got Brandy Clark. We got Ty Herndon. This guy was only big for like 3 or 4 years back in the 90s. You got Brooke Eden. I actually didn't know that, Brooke Eden. I actually didn't know that. You got Harper Gray. You've got Brandy Carlisle. Like you mentioned, TJ Osborne from Brothers Osborne. We've got Lil Nas X, Shelley Fairchild, Waylon Payne. And here is the one exception that I will say this guy is a megastar. And Shane McAnally. He's not up in front, but he is a mega songwriter. Like, this dude has every song you can think of on the radio, he's probably fucking written. So, I mean, that's the only one exception that I'm like, that's a big one.
Yeah. Well, there's rumors about Kenny Chesney, but he hasn't confirmed them.
Man, that is a big, I've had people tell me that. I'm like, that is a big conspiracy theory. Welcome to the world of conspiracy theories. I don't think it is just because Renee Zellweger opened her big fat mouth. I don't think so. But hey, I don't know. Who cares either way?
No place to talk about it. I don't have any concrete facts. I just keep hearing that he is from people that have facts. I just don't have any facts.
I don't have any facts either. I would love to see him, but hey, if he is, what's that gonna make his music any different?
Also, I don't want to be like gay. What is it when you like out someone before they come out? Like, I think Perez Hilton used to do that, and I don't think that's a good thing to do. So, but I have some thoughts on some other artists, but it's not my position. They need to come out first.
So you mentioned Perez Hilton. That guy played one of your songs, is that right? Or talked about you?
Like, I was surprised this summer I was getting tweeted about him for a song I released about 2 years ago called R.I.P. So I wasn't promoting it any longer. And he was like, listen to this. This is a great song. And Davis has been working hard at his career, and this could be his hit song. And I said, thank you. And then I asked him, like, I released this 2 years ago. Why are you now sharing it? And he's like, I just heard it and I think it's great. So I was like, well, thank you. I really appreciate the support. Because, I used to go to his website at the beginning of his career and discover a lot of talent on his site, like Lily Allen and Lady Gaga and Katy Perry, way before they got famous. He was
that Perez
kinda like,
Hilton guy though, he's one of those controversial things where you're like, should we talk about him? Should we not talk? Because that guy, man, he has been in some heat in his life. but it's good heat for him because it generates audience to his people, to him.
yeah,
Like I just watched the Brittany Murphy documentary they released on HBO Max, which is absolutely crazy. And he was on there talking about how when he was back in his days, when he was just making fun of these people, somebody had asked him a question, and the question was, who's the next person to die? And he was like, oh, Brittany Murphy for sure. And then like a week later, she was dead. And then he was like, that's when I realized I had to stop what I was doing because I was not believing this stuff. I was just saying it because of the media. Basically, he was a clown. He was a character like Howard Stern. We know Howard Stern's probably really not a prick, but it sells. It sells. Why not do it?
yeah. That's sad. I mean, sometimes when you just hang in those circles and you see people's life and you're like, on camera, they look all put together, but in their personal life, they're in shambles.
Yeah.
And maybe that's where because I've definitely witnessed some people who just have the success of the world and they're in big movies, but when you spend any time with them off camera, they're like heavily addicted to drugs and they seem really close to like an overdose, so.
Yeah, man. I want to talk real quick. How did you get into the real world? And then we'll kind of morph this because I know you probably get tired of talking about the real world, but I
mean, it's probably asked in every interview and I don't mind, but almost like I felt I've got my staple answer. So it's like, how do I say it differently this time? But, I was 21 or 22 when I was on the show. I think I was 21 when I found out I was cast. And I think I had like my 22nd birthday on the show. So I was younger and I was just out of college and I was, a bit of a party animal. And like, I was drinking. And I was just still kind of in my formative years. Like when I watch the person on The Real World and I think of who I am today, there's just such a big gap. It's like, this was him and this is me. Right. And there's still some of this person in there, but it's still like, I've grown and changed a lot. But yeah, I went to a bar in Florida and it was an open call. Like I knew about it. I didn't just walk by. I drove on purpose.
Okay. I don't want to interrupt you. I don't want to interrupt you, but I just have a question that you may not have been asked before, which is, what was the reason for going to The Real World in the early 2000s? Because now you go to The Real World, let's be honest, to build your social media, to build a following, to get famous. What was the reasoning behind you going before there was even any of this happening?
Yeah, I mean, when I did it, there was no social media yet, like Twitter and Facebook. Instagram was non-existent.
There may have been MySpace.
MySpace was existent, but it wasn't the same kind of like, you didn't have like MySpace stars the way you have Instagram stars.
Yeah.
It wasn't the same culture yet. So it wasn't for me about becoming MySpace famous for sure. But for me, like I watched The Real World in high school and those great looking guys and girls from around the world that were cast on the show, to me were like larger than life, like unattainable sort of, they were like an unattainable idolatry a bit for me. I was like, oh, that's the goal. That's the like, you're cool if you make it to being on the show. And I wanted to be on the show in high school, but just didn't see it as a realistic thing for myself. And I auditioned in college at a time when I wasn't even really watching the show any longer, because I think that show kind of catered more towards high school. And like, as I got into college, it was just not my cup of tea, as they say. Like I just wasn't really into the show any longer. I had missed a couple seasons, whereas in high school I was like religiously watching every year. Like I had to watch the whole season every week, But I felt like in college I actually had something interesting to say and could get on with my story, my life story. So I tried out with that angle, and then they bit the apple and they pulled me in onto the show and wanted me to tell my story on the show. So
I want to read, I was looking this up as you were chatting, Davis, and I want to read the bio that the real world put for you, Davis. And it says, it says, Davis is a typical blonde-haired, blue-eyed frat boy. Or is he? Hailing from the South, his upbringing was steeped in conservative Christianity. But there's only one issue. He's gay. He first realized this in his grade and came out to his mom years later. Not surprisingly, his revelation was not received well within the family. Applying for the real world was a big step for Davis. He spent most of his life being afraid to show the world who he truly is. Now he's ready for that to change. So, I want to know, when you did the real world, then you come back for the challenge. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How did that process happen?
Well, when we finished the real world, there was about a 2-month break before it actually made its way onto television.
Right.
And in those 2 months, I was filming my first challenge, the Inferno 3 in South Africa. So when I finished the challenge, I came back to the States because it was in Africa. And when maybe 3 or 4 weeks later, the first episode of The Real World aired on TV. And I went out with a group of my friends and we watched it at someone's apartment. And then we went out to the bars that night. And then people started coming up to me and tapping me on my shoulders, like strangers. And they were like, wait, are you Davis from The Real World? And I used to make a joke about all my friends. I'd lost my last name. I was no longer Davis Mallory. I was Davis from The Real World. That was my new last name. Because that's what everyone would say for years. Are you Davis from The Real World? And then, I just started getting recognized in the airport by security and at the mall by employees. And it was heavy for a while. And then the challenge started airing towards the middle of The Real World. So at one point I had 2 shows on at the same time. So that only fueled the recognition. But eventually I just stopped. I haven't done a challenge since 2011, so 10 years. And now I just never get recognized, which I like. I mean, unless it's my friends recognizing me, but not like strangers.
Yeah, well, 10 years there's a lot of age in 10 years from, no matter how old you are. So you look nothing like that picture that I posted. I was like, I don't know if I got the right dude on here. All right, man. I want to take a dark turn in the podcast. I love weird and dark things. So I want to know, Davis, what is the one conspiracy theory that you believe in?
Well, I don't know if I believe in the flat earth one. I mean, I've read it and I've seen the points of view people make, but I just don't know that it really makes sense to me when I see the opposite perspectives. So I don't think I believe that the earth is flat. I mean, like I already kind of brought one up to you when I recognized the whole homosexual push, because some people also feel like the push for like obese celebrities is the same as kind of the push for homosexuality. It's like they're kind of trying to push like unhealthiness as acceptable and homosexual as acceptable, because they don't really want you to be fit and like healthy and really like in your best shape. Because if you're unhealthy, I mean, you're prone to dying earlier and having health issues. Yeah. And the reason, which is sort of well documented in a lot of like Bill Gates's talks, is that he wants to reduce the population size because, as I've said, there's this concern that there's too many people on Earth and we're polluting the Earth and we're making the Earth overheat with global warming. And so a lot of the whole anti-vaxxers, which I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but that opinion is that they think these vaccines are possibly going to kill you, which I don't know that I believe that they're going to kill you. I mean, my grandmother and brother and sister and other people have taken these vaccines and have been, completely fine. But there's the whole conspiracy theory within the vaccine world is kind of like these vaccines are going to kill you and you're going to take them and you're going to be dead in a year, and I don't really believe that either.
Now I want to ask you a quick. I'm not trying to interrupt you, but I want to ask, you mentioned the conspiracy about the obesity and pushing them and pushing. Now I feel comfortable asking you this because I feel like we're friends right now. We're just chatting. I feel I'm comfortable asking you this. Do you think that there was this big, push and coming out. Do you think that this is just a trend for people to jump on and say, I'm gay, or hey, I'm actually gonna, I'm a transgender? Do you think people really believe that, or do you think they actually are, and this is their time? Like, oh, this person came out, so now it's my time.
I mean, I can speak from my own perspective, and like I knew my attraction to men was a real attraction.
Okay.
And I'm always curious, like with my mother and people that are not as, not, or anyone that's just not gay. I'm like, do you not have that same sex attraction that I have? Or do you not act upon your same sex attraction?
That's right. That's right. That's weird. It is a weird thing, because like I'm a straight white male, and it's like when I look at gay people, I'm like, they have attractions to something that I would never have. You know what I mean? And it's like the same thing with you. And I do question myself. I'm like,
so one thing I want to really like hit on that I don't think I've said yet is, I think if you are transgender or if you are homosexual, like, be yourself.
Yeah.
And when it comes to representation in the media, I think it's welcome, because it makes you feel like you're being represented on TV when often you were never represented before. So all of that goes to say is that, yes, I do feel like there's this opinion, though, that like young children being pushed these messages is wrong, because it could lead them to doing things that they may later regret. It's like if they get some sex change at a young age and maybe they didn't, maybe it was popularized. I mean, you know how much kids are affected by fashion fads? One kid makes a fad with a certain shoe, and then all of a sudden all the kids wear the shoes too, or they all get the same backpack, or they all get the same whatever. It's like if you're popularizing these things to young minds, it can lead a mass community towards a certain perspective. So I just think that there's a time and an appropriateness towards these things, and there's a time when it's not appropriate. So I don't really think like pushing it on a young mind is good, because it might lead a bunch of young minds to say, I'm transgender, before they really are, And I think, I have transgender friends, like Laverne Cox is a close friend of mine, and I have asked her a million questions that it was almost like asking, what is those books, like Something for Dummies, those 101 for Dummies books. Like I felt like when I became friends with her, I asked a lot of those questions that I was curious about, but had never had the chance to ask because I didn't have a transgender friend. And I think that if you were Laverne Cox, or someone like Laverne Cox that feels the way that she does, like I support and encourage you to living your life the way you want to live it, so that you feel good and happy in your life. I mean, really, that's at the end of the day what we all should be doing, is just living our lives so that we are happy and we're enjoying our lives, not hurting others, and hopefully not hurting ourselves through the process.
Man, I would love to have Laverne Cox on the show, because she killed it in Orange Is the New Black, and I just have so many questions for that one. I'm like, man, it would be great. So how did you get in contact with her? Like, were you friends with her before?
In New York City before Nashville, and I lived there for 2 years. And life in New York was very different than life in Nashville. Like I told you last night, I met Hey Good, but in New York it was like I met Chrissy Teigen, and I met just a lot of Lindsay Lohan. I would meet almost like every Friday night. We would go to a club, and there'd be somebody of some success. I met a lot of clothing designers, like people with big name in the clothing world, and models, Winnie Harlow, and people that were, models. So anyways, I went to an event in New York, and I met Laverne. We were literally standing in line next to each other as we were going to check into the event, started chatting. I'm from Georgia, she's from Alabama. She was not famous the way she is today when I met her, because I met her before she did Orange Is the New Black. I met her about a year or even 2 years before she did that show. And we just like hit it off. It was like very kindred spirits. And today I still consider her a friend. I saw her about 2 months ago for dinner. So, she's still a member of my circle of friends. But we became like, in New York, we became like weekend friends. Like, what are you doing? Okay, let's go there. And we would regularly go out. I hung out with her clique of friends, which were mostly transgendered Black women. She hung out with my group of friends, and we blended really well. And actually, when she was cast for Orange Is the New Black, she told me about it, but it was like me telling you, oh, I'm cast for XYZ, and you being like, cool, I don't know what that is, So when she told me, I was just like, cool, don't know what that is. And then when what is it, like the premiere party. She
Mhm.
took me as her date, so I went with her to see the first episode, and her other date was her acting coach, and her agent was there. So it was just the three of us. And then her acting coach was like, "Why don't you come to class?" And so I actually started going to her acting school, and her acting coach became my acting coach. And for about 2 months I went, and then I ended up leaving New York and coming to Nashville. But that was like the very end of my New York chapter, was
Did you
her
get
getting on the show, and then me leaving, and then her shooting up just like superstardom, and
Yeah.
me not really being in life any longer, and then me wondering like, what, are we still friends? Like, because now she's like on MTV Awards presenting awards, and she's doing all these new movies and stuff, and I was kind of wondering like, is our friendship going to stand fame, or is it going to disappear? But it stood. Like, we still see each other and keep up like it never, like she never got famous, so
She didn't forget where she came from.
yeah,
A
exactly.
lot
She's a
of
good one.
I've seen a lot of my friends that have done the podcast do that. Like, they get one show opening up for somebody, and it's like, next thing you know, I don't exist anymore. And I'm like, but bruh, you're still working a second job to pay for the job you're trying to do. So fine with me. But
Yeah.
did you get cast in any type of movies or small things while doing the acting? Was it just kind of a brief thing?
There was a time in my life where I was very much chasing it. And I can't say that I'm not chasing it today. I mean, this year I've had a lot of auditions, but in the movie industry, they always tell you it's like a lot of no's before you get one yes. It's been like that. I just a week ago had 3 different auditions. One was to be on Cobra Kai.
Oh,
One of them was to be like in a movie, a Christian movie. And the third one was to be in I don't remember what it was, but it was a TV series. So when I'm regularly auditioning for things, it's just I haven't, landed them. But I did a music video last summer for a song by Ingrid Andress called More Hearts Than Mine. And unknowingly, that song like got Grammy
you're
nominated
whoa,
and
whoa, whoa,
shot.
whoa, 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 whoa. You're in that video?
Yeah, I'm the boyfriend that the song is talking
No
about.
shit. That's where I know you from.
Really?
That's exactly fucking where I know you, because my mom and my sister are so damn obsessed with that song. I've probably seen that music video like 9 different times, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, your lady friend had sent me over this stuff, and I was like, yeah, why do I know him? I'm like, never seen the challenge, never seen any of that. And then you mentioned that, I was like, I think that's exactly where I know him from.
And that was like 2 summers ago. So like that was me like acting, not speaking roles, but it was me acting. So it led to something that I'm proud of. I didn't know when I got the call that song. I actually told Ingrid when I met her, I was like, I never heard the song before I showed up on set. She's like, they didn't let you hear it before set, and I was like, no, but I was like, good job, Ingrid. This is a nice song.
Yeah,
I just got a call and like, can you come and be in a video?
I want to know, besides the music thing, how when you went to audition for Cobra Kai, that's my favorite damn TV show now. What was the process of that? What was that like?
Oh, such a small role. I have 2 agents, one in Florida and one in Nashville, and they
Okay.
send me on, maybe a monthly basis between 1 to 4 auditions. That one week I had 3 in a row, but that's not a normal week for me. So I got an email from my agent. She said, this is for a TV show. It was actually like a code. They used a code name, but then later on they were like, if I'd actually got on the show, I probably wouldn't tell you that it was for Cobra Kai. Because I probably couldn't legally tell you, but because I didn't get the shot, I can tell you that it was for Cobra Kai. But yeah, so and it was a small role. Like, it wasn't a lead character, but I would have still taken it even if it was a small role.
Yeah.
I think I was like going to be a guard or maybe some teacher like role, but I was more of like an adult role, and they made me read like a few words, and then I said, sent it through. So I did it here in this room that I'm in right now. I just taped it in here. Because today's interview process, the movie that I did that was for a Christian series, I actually had to go in and meet them in person and memorize the monologue, and then they were like, all right, go. And I had one chance to just do a monologue.
Were you able to book that Christian movie, or did you just audition for it?
I didn't book that one either.
Okay.
But what I was leading into is that sometimes I do them in person, But a lot of times now they just want you to do a self tape from home first before they bring you in for person.
That's like The Voice and American Idol. They're like, hey, just send a video. If you're good, then we'll get in contact with you.
You know, when I did that country movie, they were like, "You did excellent," and I was like, "Oh, maybe I booked this one," but then I didn't hear from them, and I think their window to film has already started, so I'm pretty sure I didn't get it.
Well, do you always hear that you're good, or do you literally like? How are the people there? Like, are they like, okay, dude, you fucking suck, don't try this, or are they all kind of positive?
I don't know if it's because it's Nashville and people are just nicer here. Like, and if it was in LA, maybe they wouldn't be as nice. But hearing like you did excellent made me feel like I did excellent.
Right.
And I don't always get that. Like I've done castings in Nashville and they're like, good job. And then they dismiss you. Like you could tell like you didn't do a good job. But the way that they talked to me made me feel like I did. But maybe I wasn't the role, you know, maybe someone else did a good job. You know, maybe someone else fit the role. So.
Well, man, look, I got a couple more questions for it, and I get you off here, brother. But I do appreciate your time.
Yeah.
So first question is, what are you watching currently on TV? Netflix, HBO, whatever it may be.
So one of my friends put me onto a Netflix show called like something Vacation Rentals. Awesome Vacation Rentals, Extraordinary Vacation Rentals. I don't know the word.
Okay, it's like where they show off the vacation houses, etc.
Exactly. Like it's 3 people, 2 girls, 1 guy. They take you to 3 different houses. One that's like budget friendly, one that's unique, and one that's expensive, you know? And then they're themed. So like one theme was like log cabins. One was like architectural like advancements. One was the one I watched recently was Hawaii. Like Hawaii on a budget, Hawaii in a unique way, and then Hawaii in a luxury way. So that's the thing I've watched really most recently. So that'll be my answer. And I'm still watching it right now.
Last night I watched, I'm a big movie nerd. I mean, I've probably seen every damn movie ever made, but I watched the new Tom Hanks movie, which is on Apple TV. And it's literally, and Tom Hanks is probably my favorite actor of all time. It's literally Tom Hanks, a dog, and a robot that he builds because he is the last man on Earth. And what's happening is the world was destroyed by, you know, people. It's kind of like, okay, if you don't take care of your Earth, this is what's going to happen. And like they couldn't go outside during the day because the radiation was so high, like they would burn. And dude, the movie was just basically just one human, a dog, and a freaking robot. And it was probably the best movie I've ever seen this year. And I'm like, you're fucking crazy. And I even cried in a movie. And I'm like, why am I crying as a dead robot? What is going on?
I'm planning to watch it. What is it called?
It's called Finch.
Finch. Okay. Nice.
I think it's worth the watch. It's just if you like those, you know, the sci-fi type of post-apocalyptic shows.
I do. I feel like Tom Hanks loves to work by himself though. Like with his
but he can do it though. He did that Castaway. Did he do like the Captain Phillips? I mean, he can do by himself perfectly, and I'll watch the same damn synopsis every time. So what's the last book that you've read or that you're currently reading?
That's a good question. I'm reading the book right now that I could not tell you the name of it if you put a gun to my head, but I can tell you what it's about. A girlfriend of mine referenced it to me when I was living in New York City, saying that there's this prophecy about how many popes there's supposed to be before Christ returns. And she was saying how the Pope at the time, who was only a Pope for 4 years, and then he stepped down and now made his way to what is the current Pope, had ended his term quickly so that he could allow what has been prophesied as the final Pope to start that term. And I saw her recently and I was like, you remember that prophecy you told me about? This was like back in 2013. She told me about it. I was like, where did you hear about that? She was like, oh, I'll give you the book. So for my birthday this summer, she gave me the book and I'm reading it right now. it's something about the prophecies of the popes. And it talks about how each pope was prophesied to be a certain type of pope, and some of them they call good popes, which is like a, I don't know, maybe a pope, and then some of them they call bad popes, which is like an anti-pope. And how a lot of them were prophesized to be bad popes, and they actually really were bad in some ways. And how they're saying, I think that this pope possibly is a bad pope. It's interesting. It's a slow read. It's not like a fast, it's a big book. It's like 400 pages, and I've probably hit 100 so far. So, but it's like my airplane book, or my, like, when I don't have internet, I'll read that.
Now that's interesting. So it's kind of saying, okay, once you hit like 1,300 popes, that's when Christ is going to come back. It's kind of like, you know, I don't really know the Bible much, but it's like, you know, once this building is built, once this has happened, then that means it's, you know, the time has come. But yeah, I was always told, and I wonder if you know more about me, that no one knows when that's going to happen. So is this kind of just a mind game, kind of, where they're like, okay, look, if this happens, then, you know, Christ is going to come back. But if you don't know, then how are you supposed to know?
Yeah, I've also been told that it's like Christ comes in the night when no one's expecting.
Yeah.
But there's also been a lot of like predictions about what has to happen before Christ can return.
Right. Yeah.
And I went to Israel two maybe 3 summers ago now, and asked people these kind of questions. And one of the biggest challenges that has to happen is the Jewish people had a temple that was destroyed, and in its place right now is, I guess, a Muslim temple instead.
Right.
So in order for Christ to return, the Jews need to have a temple rebuilt. And I think this same friend of mine I told you about that gave me the book said that they're currently planning to build it right now. I think they're not building it in the same location because, as I said, there's another temple on its location, but they are building it at the moment, which I guess you can read about online, and it's nearing completion. And there is also development of a coin that's like a currency to be used over there. It's also somehow, you can Google it, it's like the coin of Jacob or something. I don't remember the term, or Abraham. But it's also like a prophecy fulfillment. So I guess there's all these checklists that need to go off before it could take place. And some of them are close to being finished. So that's why she feels. And then when the world just started getting weird last year, it just started to feel kind of like something spiritual.
And then I started freaking out. I was like, man, let me tell you what. Because I grew up in a godly family, you know, and so I'm like, I have a deal with one of my friends. If you die before me and nothing has happened, you come back to me and you tell me, what is the afterlife? Is it Buddha? Is it God? Because what if it is? I need to get my shit right.
Yeah. I could make that deal with a friend too.
Dude, that was an awesome coffee cup. I seen that Elvis coffee cup. Legit.
You know, my name is Davis Mallory, and his is Elvis Presley, and I've always felt like it was like a similar spelling to his first name. So he's always been a role model of mine as well. He did pop, he did country.
He did everything. I want to know, Davis, do you think Elvis Presley died in August of 1977, or do you think that conspiracy is true, that no, he didn't die, he died at a later date, or he's possibly still alive?
I have no factual information about that story. I didn't even know that there was a conspiracy that he didn't die. I was already died on the toilet, and he overate, and like
whoa. Back the fuck up. You didn't know. You've never seen, never. Just type in Elvis dead on Google, and it's going to lead you to like 9,000 different places. I mean, it's crazy. Some of them you believe, but I've come to terms that he died, because you're never going to know anyways. So why not just believe it?
Yeah. Well, I have something to research now.
But the last book that I read, and I always do this because I never used to read what I was doing, but people were like, well, we didn't know what you read, because what if we don't like what they're reading? I was like, okay, cool. So I just finished reading. It's called The Phantom Prince, and it is about the girlfriend of Ted Bundy when he was committing the murders and was actually indicted and actually was killed. And I'll be honest with you, Davis, I felt sorry for the dude. I don't know if that was part of what she was trying to do or what the publishers were trying to do, but I felt bad for the guy. She was a bitch. She would like, okay, we need a break. And then she would date somebody else. But once Ted Bundy did it, she was like, no, motherfucker, you can't date nobody else. And then he would be like, okay, well, I got to go like get his frustrations out. And then there would be somebody else missing. And I'm like, I kind of felt, but then towards the end of the book, you're like, oh, I don't feel bad for that sucker anymore, but it was a crazy, it's like 150 pages. Like it's really short and it's just crazy. And it's because the guy was basically living a double life as a freaking serial killer. And I'm telling you, he had every story, every question she had, he had a perfect answer to the question. Something that I would not think of off the top of my, like she had found some kind of, it was like a machete or an axe or something. She found it under the seat of his car. And his immediate answer was, oh, you remember the other day when I went down to my dad's house and helped him chop down the tree? That was from that. And I'm like, I would have been like, oh, well, I actually just purchased it at Walmart the other day. It's just the guy was brilliant in a very devilish way, I should say. I don't make it look like Ted Bundy was brilliant, but
that's what kind of like humanizes or explains his perspective. I want to tell you the name of the book I read if I didn't think about the fact that someone might want to read it.
Hey, I'm actually very interested. I actually look into that because I love all that kind of.
I'll grab it. It's in the other room. Do I have
sure,
time
go ahead.
to?
Yeah, I don't care. Yeah.
Okay.
We're not professional over here, Davis.
Told you just. Here it is. Petrus Romanus, the final pope is here. It's also 500 pages long, so 486, and it's by Thomas Horn, who apparently is like a well-known nonfiction writer.
So is that like is it like a Christian book or is it just like a book of like historical facts?
From what, and then let me see how long I'm in on it. I'm on page 125. So I think I read 4 chapters. One of the chapters really like discusses every pope, what they were prophesied to be like and how they met that prophecy. I have not enough memory to even summarize anything else other than that. I know that I've liked reading it, but I have put the book down for a while. I was just in Puerto Rico and Miami for 3 weeks, and I haven't touched it in about a month. So it's like I kind of forget what I read.
Well, Davis, look, I've had you on for a little over an hour. I appreciate every single minute we've had on here. I think we've had a good time. So go ahead, take as much time as you want to. The floor is yours. Anything you want to promote, anything you just want to talk about, go ahead and get it out now.
I mean, I guess we talked about my song Lifeline, and then the song Heavy. The shirt I'm wearing today is from that music video. And the 2 of those songs are out now on Spotify. And I released an album in the start of this year, 2021, called Little Victory. And it's a compilation of songs I wrote in Sweden, Berlin, and Nashville. So it's got a Euro pop sound with a little bit of a Nashville sound. And it's like been my like baby that I worked on for about 3 years, and it's finally out, a joy of mine. And then I'm leading into 2022, and I have a few songs coming out in the near future that I'm excited for. One's called Forever Young, and the other one's called It Took Work. They both got signed to a record label based in Amsterdam called Suave. And through Suave, I have a song out already that's nearing 1 million streams, and I haven't actually hit that 1 million stream goal yet in my career. It's always been sort of like a New Year's resolution. This year I want one of my songs to hit 1 million streams. And the song on Suave called Without You I Feel Good is like just 20,000 shy of hitting 1 million. So it
Wow.
should happen soon for me. So I signed 2 more with Suave, and they both come out in January and February of 2022. So I'm hoping they do the same good job they did for me for my first song. So that's like what I'm excited for in the future. And yeah, in the meantime, I DJ a lot, and I've been having a good year traveling. So
Well, Davis, I appreciate your time. Thanks for doing it, brother. We'll get you back on when you've got, some
well,
other project or whatever coming on. If you'd be
it
willing
was
to do that.
interesting. And I love all your dark turns and questions. So thank you for having me on.
Yeah, man. Have a good one, man.
You too.
All right,
Thank you, Dylan.
appreciate it.